This lesson is on writing the rough draft for our compare and contrast essay on mood with Hercules. So, as always, when we start an essay, we're going to start with our body paragraphs. I know I say this every time, but it bears repeating. The majority of your grade is based on what you put in your body paragraphs. So it's best to start with them so that you can manage your time and then hopefully leave yourself enough time for a good introduction and a good conclusion. But you could always shorten those if time gets short. So it's better to focus on the body paragraphs first. So we're going to use our brainstorming and notes in order to help us write this essay. So this lesson is on how to take those notes and turn them into a paragraph. So, as always, with any paragraph, your first sentence is your topic sentence. And you're going to restate what you're doing in terms of a task in that paragraph. So I give you some various examples of ways to write the topic sentence for the paragraph analyzing the written myth. Okay? You want to include the title, which is The Labors of Hercules, the author, Rex Warner, and the fact that we are going to be discussing the techniques that he uses to create mood, which contributes to our understanding. So, in my first example, in the myth, The Labors of Hercules, the author, Rex Warner, uses several techniques to create mood, which contributes to the reader's understanding of the story. My second example also includes those things. Rex Warner uses several techniques to create mood in his version of the myth, The Labors of Hercules. And then my last one, to create mood and help the reader's understanding of the story, Rex Warner uses a variety of techniques in The Labors of Hercules. So some of the vocabulary changes a little bit. I use several in the first two, variety of techniques in the last one. I mentioned mood, that he's creating mood using techniques to create mood in each one, the author's name in each one, the title of the myth in each one. In two of them, I also add in about it contributing to the understanding of the story. So that is a good thing to include since it's kind of the focus on what the mood's doing for us. But if you feel that that's a little overwhelming and complexity, then you can simplify it down and just focus on the techniques to create mood. Once you have your topic sentence, the first thing we always do is we're going to give our first example. So you're going to add a transition word. The first time, the first example, appropriate transition words. First, in the beginning, for example, an example is. So those would be one of these would work for your first example in the paragraph. Then we want to provide the technique that Rex Warner used and the context in which he used it. Okay, so what you're going to do here is go back to your brainstorming sheet, and I'll pull my example up here. So I did a little example here for you. This would pretend that this is what I wrote for my brainstorming sheet. I have my quote here that we discussed in class. Oh, I misspelled his name. Try that again. There we go. With my citation. And then down here, I said that, how we identify the feeling, right? The word suffered makes the reader feel sad for him and sympathy. So the technique, when I say the word suffered, the technique we're focusing on is word choice. So that's what I'm going to say in my first sentence there in my example. Sorry, bring it back. There we go. Warner's word choice in the first sentence when he introduces the reader to Hercules, so there's your context, right, creates sympathy in the reader for the hero. So I gave the technique, its word choice, I gave the context, it was the first sentence where we're introduced to Hercules, and what it did for us, it created sympathy. So then I'm going to include my quote, right, and so if I go back to my sheet, that's the very first thing on our brainstorming sheet, right, was my quote. Hercules suffered much during his life with my citation. So now I'm going to put that next in my rough draft. The author wrote, Hercules suffered much during his life with the citation. Notice I added the anchor, right? We want to introduce our quotes with appropriate phrases, write the quote, and cite our quote, right? And that's what I did down here. Step 5 then is we're going to explain why this technique created the feeling in the reader. So you did that on your brainstorming sheet if you filled it out. Okay, so down here, right, I said it means that Hercules felt emotional pain and people generally feel sympathy when they see someone in pain. That's the why, right? So in number 2, we identified the feeling it created and why it created it. That the word suffered created sympathy for us, made us feel sad for him, because we knew he was in emotional pain, and we generally feel sorry when someone's in pain. So that's what we're going to state next. We're going to state people generally feel sympathy for those who are suffering or in pain. And finally, we have to explain how this helps us understand the storyline. How does it contribute to the story? So on our sheet, that was the third thing we did down here, right? We wanted to explain how it contributes to our understanding by helping us with these different areas, identifying the hero, identifying the villain, foreshadowing something good or foreshadowing something bad. And in my answer, I wrote Hercules is identified as the hero, and it foreshadows he's going to face difficult times and many obstacles in the story. So in my paragraph now, I write, the writer foreshadows coming difficulties so the reader anticipates that Hercules will face great obstacles which will bring him heartbreak. So you'll notice that I wrote it a little more formally in my paragraph for my essay than I did on my brainstorming sheet. That is something you want to work towards. So on your brainstorming sheet, it's kind of training a thought. You're writing down your thoughts at the time. But when you put them into your actual paragraph, you want to try and use more academic vocabulary and write it in a more formal style. So, right, for example, I wrote difficulties instead of, problems, and I wrote anticipates as opposed to, foreshadows or thinks. So just using that academic vocabulary when you write your actual paragraph. After that, I'm going to add another transition word because I'm going to do my second example. So appropriate transition words for your second and your third examples are words like next, also, in addition, additionally, moreover, and furthermore. Okay, so then you're going to repeat steps 3. Notice I'm not doing 2 transition words, I'm only doing 1, right? I did the transition word, went back to step 3. The technique and the context for my second example, the quote for my second example, and then again, why did it create the feeling and how does it help us with the story? So those would be on your brainstorming sheet. Brainstorming sheet, right? Your second example where you did the same thing and your third example. They're all going to go into one paragraph. Right? So again, we keep talking about how these paragraphs are starting to have a lot more sentences in them to fully develop them. Okay? So now we have to do a second paragraph doing the same thing for the essay. For the video, sorry. Right? So we have a paragraph analyzing the video. I don't care which one you do first. If you want to put the paragraph analyzing the video first and then the myth, or the other way around, doesn't really matter. It's your choice. But we're going to do a similar process with analyzing the video. So again, we're going to write a topic sentence, restating our task. So some examples in the video, The Wrong Path. That's the title of the episode. From the series, Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. So that's the TV show. The director uses several film techniques to create mood, which contributes to the viewer's understanding of the story. Other examples, the director uses several techniques to create mood in the video, The Wrong Path. From the series, Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, or to create mood and help the viewers understand the story. The director of The Wrong Path from the series, Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, uses a variety of techniques. So again, switching up the vocabulary a little bit, switching up the order, but you're including basically the same things, the title of the episode and the series in this case, the fact that it's a director, not a writer, and that there's several techniques to create mood. So you want to try and make sure your topic sentence for each of your paragraphs is different. don't follow the same format, the same organizational strategy in both paragraphs. Make it different. But then the rest of it becomes pretty similar. So we're going to add our transition word. And again, I would use a different one in each paragraph for your first example. So if you use first in one paragraph, you use a different transition word in the other paragraph. I did down here, I used for example for this one. And then you're going to do the technique and the context just like we did for the math. So if I go to my brainstorming sheet, right, you'll see, let me make it bigger for you, right, that under camera angles, I have, right, that there are close-ups, and I'm trying to move it over, there we go. There are close-ups when Aeolus and Hercules are talking about the death of Hercules' family, right, the camera zoomed in on them and just had kind of like from the shoulders up. And how did that make the viewer feel when the camera angle came in? Well, it made us feel like we were listening to a serious or private conversation. Sad for Hercules. It was a serious conversation. It was about a sad topic and an understanding of why he's mad. So we kind of listened in and felt what Hercules was saying to Aeolus, as opposed to if it had been a broader camera angle. And what it did for us is that foreshadowed that there was probably going to be a confrontation between Hercules and Juno, right? He's saying it. We're getting this serious kind of intense feel to the scene. And so we're anticipating that there's going to be confrontation and something bad, foreshadowing something bad is going to happen further on in the story. So now I'm going to put these ideas into my paragraph. So if I go back to my checklist here, right? For example, the director's use of close-ups in the scene between Aeolus and Hercules adds to the serious nature of the scene. Hercules and Aeolus were discussing the murder of Hercules' wife and children. So I put the context in, right? It was the technique was the close-up, and it was the scene with Aeolus and Hercules. And then in my own words, I explained what was happening in the scene. They were discussing the murder of Hercules' wife and children. And then I go on to explain how this created the feeling in the reader. So the close-up angle, that was the second box. So far I've put the first box here into different sentences. Now I'm going to put my second box. So I go back, and the close-up camera angle made the viewer feel there we go, as if he or she were listening in on this serious conversation. The audience feels sympathy for Hercules and understanding of his anger towards Juno. So I just put what I had in that box. I just wrote it a little more formally in my paragraph. And then how does it help us? On my notes, all I did was check the box. I have to explain a little bit more now in my paragraph. So the viewer is clear that Hercules is a tragic hero and anticipates that there'll be a confrontation, which adds suspense and excitement. And then I'm going to add my transition word for my second example and my third. So you're going to just pull 3 examples from whatever notes you took during the video, the 3 you feel you understand the best, feel the strongest about, or the clearest about, and you're going to write them up. You probably have a lot more than 3, so you're just going to pick 3 from here and write them up following this format. So just some reminders. The titles of the myths are considered short stories, so they're not italicized like the title of a book. They go in quotation marks. If you're quoting dialogue from the written myth, you want to put the entire quotation in your double quotation marks, and then replace the double quotation marks in the story with single, right? So you put the dialogue in single quotation marks, and those are in your green notes in your binders for the rules. And then the title of the video episode goes in quotation marks. So that would be episode 1, The Wrong Path. The title of the series is italicized like a book. So we look at episodes of a TV series like chapter titles or short stories, and then the whole series would be more like the book. So the name of the series goes in italics, okay? And certainly if you have any questions about any of this, that is why we type in school, why we write it in school. I will be there to help you as you write it up.